It's Maximum News. I'm your host, as always, Max Derrat, your friendly neighborhood Simpson skin, and...
Sybsidian.
Sybsidian.
Sybsidian. Oh my goodness. The day has been long.
Yes. And, yeah, we've been talking about some heavy stuff before we record the show, just stuff having to do with our country. But we won't subject you to that. We'll just subject you to heavy stuff from the world of gaming. Well, not entirely heavy. We do have some good news. To start off, we're going to do the shortest news segment in podcast history. You ready?
Shorter than there's a new GTA 6 or a new GTA game being worked on?
Yes, even shorter than that. Yep.
Okay, all right.
Ready for this? All right.
Hit me.
Elden Ring is coming out in less than a week. Get excited. All right, now for the next news segment. I mean,
we're not going to do any spoilers. We're not going to talk because there's a bunch of them now. It keeps getting worse every day. It keeps getting worse.
Yeah.
I don't know why these people decide that, oh, hey, now is a perfect time to just ruin a whole bunch of people's experience.
Yeah. Just because they think it makes them feel cool.
Just because I can get some clicks. And the disgusting thing is that even if you dislike them, even if you're angry at them, they just do more.
Yeah.
If they put out a full-on spoiler in the headlines, ruined it for everybody, made everybody upset, and go to their site and click on it and be like, how dare you? Why? Blah, 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 blah. Really upset about this. They would like it because it's more traffic. Yep. Because in the world of some news, not all, but actually most, I would say, absolutely, it's like there is no such thing as bad news. There is no such thing as a negative experience, because all you do is you just make more of it, and more people click on it because that's just the way that the system works.
It's the way the business works.
Yeah, humanity. We really need some help.
Yeah, it's not about the quality anymore. Anyways, move beyond that. Actually, it's something that I'm particularly excited for. And another thing that I'm actually surprisingly excited for is a video game adaptation into a movie. So it was announced, let's see, today's the 18th. We're recording on the 18th. It was announced on the 15th of February, last Tuesday, by Netflix that we are officially getting a Bioshock movie. Now, Bioshock movie, that was a project that was originally announced around the time that the first game came out, which was like 2008, 2009. It was originally going to be...
Long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. It was originally going to be directed by Gore Verbinski, who, if you guys don't know, he was the guy who did the Pirates of the Caribbean films. I'm not sure if he did all of them after the first one. The first one was the only good one, in my opinion. But that project fell apart. Well, now it seems like Netflix is in the business of creating a bunch of video game adaptations, and the next one's going to be Bioshock. And I hope the reason why they're doing this now is because they're hoping to release this alongside a new Bioshock game. Because, we've been hearing that Bioshock 4 is in the works forever. It just needs to be confirmed, and I hope that this announcement means that it's just around the corner.
Now, the coolest thing about this announcement is that they're going to be building an entire underwater city to film this in.
What?
Which is so cool. However, they plan on demoing it as soon as they're done filming. So that's kind of weird because you know how they love tearing down their sets. It's so bizarre.
Wait a minute.
No, I'm joking.
I was about to say
they're not building the underground.
Don't mess with me like that. My girlfriend already does that enough with me. I gotta get her. Okay, yeah, that would be crazy expensive. Like the most expensive production in history. It'd make people like James Cameron blush. But it would be cool. Yeah. I mean, practical sets for a Bioshock movie, hell yeah. But yeah, just to go back to what I was about to say, I'm actually excited for this. I think we have more reason to be optimistic about a Bioshock movie coming from Netflix than virtually any other project, because lately Netflix has been killing it with their video game adaptations. We got Arcane, which was incredible. Just incredible.
Arcane was not made by Netflix. It was, in easy to understand terms, it was published by Netflix.
Right.
Netflix had absolutely zero interaction with that. With just the general concept, world, art, direction, editing, directing. They didn't even market it. Mm-hmm. They weren't even they marketed it, but they were not involved in the marketing for it at all. Which again is one of those things where it's like that's even weirder, really.
Yes. But, fair enough. And that's a good point. But it just seems like they have producers over at Netflix that have a good eye and are able to discern between what's a good video game property turned into a movie or TV show and what's not. But yeah, just aside from Arcane, though, there was Castlevania, which I never watched, but everybody says is really good.
That was decent.
Yeah.
And
then
so
Cuphead.
I watched the first couple episodes, but after the first because they had that weird thing where they broke it up, right?
Yeah.
And this is actually what I was trying to find here. So the Netflix one, because they broke it up from one, like the first season air quotes was only 4 episodes, right?
Yeah.
And then they had it, again, it was broken up in stages. Those latter stages came out when I didn't have an active subscription. So that's what I was looking at here. So yeah, it's weird because they just don't have the speed at which to put this stuff out at. And even with Arcane, like we're not going to get the next season of Arcane until well into next year, if not year after.
Yeah.
So which is, and again, it's primarily because they created, so Arcane did all of their audio at the same time for seasons 1 and 2. Like all that audio is actually recorded. So it's there and we have the ability to get it, or like you can listen to it now.
Right.
And there were big chunks of the story that were actually cut out in the previous season 1. So it's interesting to see, how quick are they going to be on their feet to get some of this stuff out? Like, they announced it now, but is it going to get delayed for 4 years, for 5 years? Like, we're still waiting on the Fallout TV show, and that was promised. Like, I mean, that was ages ago, and I know it's under active work. And I think they're actually they've been filming it for for several months now. But how or when we're going to get that, I have no idea.
Yeah. And even when they're done principal photography, it might not be another year or two until it comes out. And another thing I forgot to bring up is that seems to be the case for HBO's The Last of Us. I think they released a tweet saying that it's not coming out this year. It's going to be coming out next year. And in regards to Fallout, I'm glad you brought that up because they just announced that Walton Goggins, he's been in a lot of movies. Like the most recent one that I could think of is The Hateful Eight. He was announced as the lead in the show. Now, I don't know if they casted him months ago and are just announcing it now. Maybe they've been filming him. I don't know. But that's just all to your point that it's going to take a while. And it's probably going to take even longer with a property like Bioshock the identity of Bioshock is so intrinsic to its aesthetic, and being able to perfect that and film it correctly, it's going to take years of preparation, I think.
Probably, yes, most certainly. And whether or not they'll do that actually faithfully, because it's one of those things where it's, and this is the big fear that I have for the Fallout one too, is that it's so stylized, right?
Yeah.
It's got so much heart to the style and the color and the aesthetics.
They have to nail it.
I really hope they can nail it. They could pull it off. And I think WandaVision actually maybe helped with that, because that 1950s aesthetic that they had there, people did not react negatively to it. It was a good visual as far as most of the comments and commentary went, is that they actually really liked it. So that'll be interesting to see if they do stick with that kind of you get the visual aesthetic, but you also have the filmography. I would like to see certain sections or certain bits of the Fallout done in that black and white kind of the thing that you get in the games, the thing that you get in other places. And then the other thing that's nice, would be nice about that in regards to the Bioshock would be again, if they captured that kind of colorized, futuristic, sort of retro 1920s
steam
feel.
Punk kinda, but not really.
Yeah. It's a very weird combination, right?
Yeah.
Of stuff, and exactly how to pull it off correctly is difficult, obviously. So fingers crossed. I am really hoping that they do a good job with this.
Yeah.
Because again, it's there's a lot of really good video game stories that are out there that need a better flushing out. And Arcane, perfect. They nailed that absolutely perfectly. The only thing I was disappointed with Arcane is there wasn't more to it.
Right.
That they had certain other flares of story here and there, and I kind of wished that they had zeroed in on some of those stories a little bit more, had a little bit more stuff going on in the background. But again, it's like they couldn't really pitch that, right?
Yeah, and with the world of Bioshock, like the conflict between the characters, if they're going with the original Bioshock, which I think they are, the conflict, the political warfare between the characters of Andrew Ryan and Frank LaFontaine, or is it just Frank Fontaine? I can't remember. But, representing opposite ends of the ideological spectrum. You can do a lot to expand upon the intrigue of that. Plus, you have all the action that comes along with Bioshock, and amazing, amazing characters. The only thing, though, that I'm a little bit weary about is how they'll be able to do the main character. Because if you remember from the first game, the main character talks for like the first part of it, like the opening cutscene, and then he's just silent for the rest of it. So I don't know what they're going to do in regards to that. But aside from that...
Well, and that's where you have some difficulty with the fans, right? Obviously the fans have this issue where they have a concept of how they see the protagonist, and everybody sees that protagonist a little bit different. I think I've mentioned it before. I'm working on my book. I've written the first few chapters in a way that it was interesting to see how certain people dragged or not dragged, implanted their own concept of the hero before the hero was officially introduced. And that's a cool concept in the realm of humanity, where you can give the same story to 10 different people, and 10 different people will have 10 different ideas of what that translates into, right? And that's a cool thing, but it plays absolutely havoc, and is absolutely brutal when you are trying to take an existing story like that particular character, like a Commander Shepard, and then show them in an actual TV show. It's like, how do you do that? Because you can't do that without annoying a lot of people. Because there's a lot of people, myself included, who never played Mass Effect as a male Shepard. Never.
Yeah.
It was always fem shep, and it was always a particular style that I played the character in, and that wasn't even retro. That wasn't even like when they came out with the official canon fem shep. It's like that wasn't even her. Like not even close. It was like so far off from mine. And again, it's like, and that's just the official canon of the alternate reality Shepard that we have, right? And so that's kind of this crazy thing where it's going to shock a lot of people. But I think in example of Mass Effect versus Bioshock, Mass Effect has is going to have way easier time of this than Bioshock will, because Bioshock, you have like the personality of the character is really out there. And this may actually help them. I kind of don't think so, but it may end up helping them. And so if it ends up helping them, then great. That's a good thing. But if it doesn't end up helping them, then it'll be more difficult for them to keep that audience, because the first 20 seconds of the show, this is the player character, this is a protagonist, and everybody will roll their eyes and go, that's not my protagonist, that's not mine, not my hero, and then they'll storm away and walk away from the show. Whereas in Mass Effect, you have more of that, the official Commander Shepard is like, you take a picture of the Commander Shepard, you show it to people go, oh yeah, that's him. And it's sort of like Kratos from God of War too. It's like you can show the canon version of Kratos to people, and people will be like, yeah, it's Kratos, even though you can customize him, even though you can change a lot about him. That still is there, that still functions as a recognizable icon for certain people.
Yeah. And when you have a character like Jack from the first game, where you can basically just imprint your own personality onto him, having that blank slate can either spell great potential for the writers, or it can turn into an absolute disaster. By the way, just one quick thing before we move on to the next story. Can you imagine if they actually made a Mass Effect movie and they made Commander Shepard female? Just how pissed off a certain segment of the internet would be.
Well, again, it depends on how you make them, right? Like it also depends on the actor too, because I think a lot of people looked at The Witcher and they were like, not my Witcher, and then he did the role, and he absolutely nailed it. Like he really did. He nailed it really, really well. Like I would say in the realm of like what people were expecting and wishing for, it was like high 85%. Like, and that's saying something, because I don't think you can get like north of 90%. I really don't think you can. There are certain characters that it just doesn't click, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't have that feeling, and so we'll see on how that reacts and how where that goes from there. Yeah. So as far as official stuff, I would say I think the Fallout TV show has way more of a chance at bigger success than the Bioshock one. That's what my guess is going to be. And let's cross our fingers and hope that they're actually both just good.
Yeah.
Because there's a high probability that they're both going to be terrible, horrendous. Everybody's going to roll their eyes and go, oh my goodness, this was the worst thing ever. Why would they do this? This is garbage. And then there's a bunch of other, because it's so common, right? It's so
up until recently,
so normal.
Remember, like video game adaptations, they tend to not just be bad. They tend to be like the worst things ever created. So let's hope that with the recent trend of adaptations like Sonic the Hedgehog and Arcane, that we can have that continue, and hopefully that trend will continue when Metal Gear Solid finally decides to release its movie. All right, next story side. Nintendo, they're still wondering why people are emulating their games, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's going on with the store?
So I've been on record a lot that I am, what's the term? Irate with how Nintendo does things. It is absolutely shocking that they will go aggressively after people who are porting their games from the original Nintendo to be able to play.
Yeah.
And they will go after them aggressively. And then you can stand there and say, all right, is there any way we can buy the ability to play these games? Is there any amount of money that you'll accept for us to be able to play these games? And Nintendo looks you square in the eye, spits in your face, and says, never. And you're just like, why? And this doubly drives me mad when it comes to Nintendo, because they've had major financial difficulties. And they've had several periods of major financial difficulties over the last 20 years. And the question is like, Nintendo, you are leaving literally billions upon billions upon billions of dollars on the table because you refuse to engage with your audience. You absolutely refuse to accept and interact with us when we're requesting the ability to play certain games from our childhood and offering you stacks of cash to do it.
Yeah. It's like they're acting out of spite just because, because emulation, just the fact that emulation is a reality. That they're like, okay, well, if you're going to emulate our games, then we're just not going to do all these other things that make business sense for us, just to spite you. That's the only way that it makes sense in my mind. But sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, it's just, and it's always been like this. And again, I don't understand why. It's like, you need money, right? Yeah, I guess we need money. Okay, then do you want to do something about this? Do you want to come up with a worthwhile trade? No, I refuse. No, you don't deserve to play our games. It's like, I just don't it's one of the things that I've never understood. And having worked with Japanese developers, having worked with creative minds in that are based in Japan, I can honestly say this is not an uncommon thought. In the slightest, this is not an uncommon thought. It's not mainstream, but it's more than an insignificant sliver of the population. There's a lot of Japanese creators who refuse to let foreigners access their games or access their stories or access their entertainment, despite the fact that you could raise millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. Despite that, they still refuse.
This isn't the middle of the 20th century anymore. We're homies now. Come on, we're happy to work with you.
And again, it's like, I've worked with these guys. I worked with one fellow, and I tried to convince him for years that if he just allowed a translation of his products, he would be able to sell more stuff. And his response was, no, foreigners don't deserve to read my work. Foreigners don't deserve to play my games.
That's wow.
And it's like, dude, why? And here's the kicker. He was so broke that he could barely buy food. And it's like, and again, it's like,
well, you
dude,
can't say he's not principled. It's just a bad principle.
You have people who are holding out money, begging for you to be able to, like, to give them a thing that they want to do, and you're saying no for no other reason than you hate the foreigners. Again, this is a very small minority, because obviously one of Japan's biggest, like, exports is their manga and anime and the adult sandwich making anime. That's one of their. It's like 10% of their exports. So like that's it's wild. That's crazy.
Yeah, we don't like foreigners except when they buy our pornography.
I don't know what you're talking about. All I know of that is sandwich making. I don't know.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. Totally no innuendo there. But yeah, the whole reason why we're talking about this, side, what's been going on with the 3DS and Wii U?
So they're closing down those stores. They're no longer supporting the Wii U. And there was a bunch of people who run libraries and who run historical foundations that preserve video games. And they said, "Hi, we'd like to be able to secure some of this stuff for our libraries." You know, these are actual libraries. These aren't, guys running this out of their garage claiming to get every video game ever created for free, because like these are actual, like, museums that are, they're an actual, like, I think they're called, it's sort of like a charity, but it's not like really a charity. It's like, the people who run them, they don't make money, like large amounts of money off of it, but but they do get subsidies and little to no taxation, because museums aren't there to make profit. They're there to secure history so that we don't repeat the bad parts of history. I don't know why so many people are adamant to forget the past so that we can redo the mistakes of the last generation. It's like, wow, good job. But yeah, these are actual libraries. The primary goal is the preservation of knowledge, and Nintendo basically looked at them and told them to go blank themselves.
Yeah,
and again, it's like, is there nothing we can do to make you understand how important preservation of knowledge is? Are you preserving this stuff? Are you preserving the source code of these games?
Yeah. Is there a secret Nintendo vault that we don't know of? Yeah.
No, they're not. They've come out and stated that in some cases. They've stated that their plan is to let this stuff die on the vine and be forgotten.
No, don't play Super Smash Bros. Melee. Play the new version that you still got to pay for.
And again, it's like, dudes, if you just created a store, created the historical foundation for Nintendo games and charged people $400 to access it, you would be a billionaire tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
But again, they refuse, and I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense.
Give Game Freak, invest a couple $100 million in Game Freak, get them to produce a Pokemon MMO, and then there you go. You got a $100 billion game for the next 20 years. It makes no sense to me. And look, like, I understand to a certain degree with the Wii U, like, how Sony recently got rid of the PSP store because virtually nobody uses the PSP anymore. Sort of the same thing with the Wii U. That console didn't do particularly well for Nintendo. But the 3DS? People are still using the crap out of the 3DS. Which is impressive considering how old the console is. But it's just because it's got the best number of games, and Nintendo is just such a ubiquitous property that people are still using it. So why get rid of that? I guess maybe because the Switch, because it sort of allows a certain degree of portability with it. But I still know tons of people that use the 3DS to play Pokemon and Tomodachi Life and all those types, and even the Legend of Zelda remasters. But yeah, I don't get it, man. Hopefully, I can only imagine that maybe the circumstance where they would take our concerns into consideration is if they had some sort of serious, more than serious financial trouble, like different from the stuff that they've been dealing with the last 20 years. But
again, they were close to bankruptcy, like not just a little. They were extremely close to bankruptcy.
Oh, really? Oh,
and again, somehow they just decided no. Like they had they had people offering. I think they got approached by a couple of the people who actually do the modding or the porting, I guess you could call it. And they're like, hey, there's a business opportunity here, and they just flat out refused to meet with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't even try. Again, they're like, how do we make some money? We are so broke. We are almost we're having to mortgage our houses. We're like, we can barely pay the employees. What are we going to do? Well, there's somebody here offering us a couple $1 billion to release old content that we already have in file. No. Tell them if they show up here again, we'll have the police arrest them.
We'll sick the Yakuza on them. Yeah, guys, if there's if any of you listening to this right now have any ideas to why Nintendo
please leave your comments, because I am so confused and I really what do you think? Give us your concepts on it, because it's interesting.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to this next story. Has to do with Halo. Pretty big right now. Halo Infinite came out last December. We got the TV show coming out next month. But speaking of the TV show, there is a chance, I'm not sure how big this chance is, but there's a chance that it might not premiere next month. The story comes out of Eurogamer. Apparently, the composers behind Halo's iconic music, I'm talking about the music from the games, the composers, Marty O'Donnell and Mike Salvatore, they filed a lawsuit in the Washington State Court back in June 2020. In case you didn't know, this lawsuit was filed because these two were seeking unpaid royalties dating all the way back to the release of the first Halo game. So over 20 years. They've tried for roughly that amount of time to gain clarity from Microsoft regarding what unpaid royalties are due. And though they would get checks from Microsoft in the form of quote-unquote royalties, it was unclear to them how those numbers were calculated and whether or not they took into account other royalties that they were deserved, like sales of the soundtrack, when the music was remastered for, say, the Halo 1 and 2 anniversaries, when the music was in the anime version, etc. Apparently, they weren't even credited for their music when it was reused in Halo Infinite. And part of their original contract said that if their stuff was going to be reused or re-recorded, they had to be contacted about it. But this didn't happen. So they just want to make sure that they are, in fact, getting what they are owed. And this is not about reclaiming ownership of the music, despite what some people might tell you. Microsoft filed a counterclaim saying that the Halo music qualifies as a quote-unquote work for hire, it's a legal term, and as a result, Microsoft qualifies as the author of that work from a legal standpoint. Now, O'Donnell and Salvatore contest this, saying that their work was never work for hire. It was a license deal. They licensed the music to Bungie, the original creators of the game, and this was before Bungie was bought by Microsoft. Now, anyways, even though this was filed 2 years ago, it's only now that it's being dealt with. A date for mediation was set for this week, so we should be knowing any day now as to what's going to happen. If no agreement is reached, the dispute may go to court, and as part of their legal action, O'Donnell and Salvatore have instructed their lawyers to explore the possibility of using a preliminary injunction to block the release of the upcoming Halo TV show. Yeah. So that's why there's a chance. Now, I don't know what the truth of the matter is, and I don't know whether or not the release of the TV series will get blocked. I just know that Halo's identity is synonymous with the monk chant and the da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. Yeah, Halo, I'd argue, has the greatest music ever produced for a Western video game. I want these guys to get paid, and I want the music to be in the Halo TV show. So please, let's get this settled. Side, you look at this, do you see any chance that something really bad can come out of this? Hard to say, right?
Hard to say, because these guys have been shafted.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Really, really, really terribly. For guys who created music and then was unable to do anything, was ordered that he was not allowed to do anything even reminiscent of Halo. Which is terrible, because I honestly think that the Halo sound is sort of a kind of like a unique genre, really. It's taking more than one thing and it's combining them together to create something new and unique and whatnot. And you just don't have that in most other places. So there's no genre that it fits into necessarily, I would think.
Yeah, it's so weird, because it's like,
and so basically, compare this to any other artist. It's like telling Van Halen that they're not allowed to make rock music anymore.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, exactly.
It's like, we now own this and you can't do anything even reminiscent of this. And again, it's like these guys, I watched the videos of them create this stuff because they were actually recording at the time. And again, it's so sad. It's so miserably sad to see this done this way, because I honestly believe that they have been treated very poorly here. And as far as whose fault it is, it's like a legal department person. It's not Phil or anybody else at Microsoft.
Yeah.
It's literally a lawyer who's paid to advise and talk about this, and then does so in just a really terrible, terrible way. So, yeah. I don't know.
This is sort of like the gaming world's equivalent of when Prince was trying to get out of his contract, and it got so bad that, he became the artist formerly known as Prince and all that. And if you guys want to know like how else Marty O'Donnell and Mike Salvatore got shafted for their work, go look at what happened to them when they worked on Destiny. We talked about this on the show like a few months ago. It's so sad. There's no other way to describe it. It's so sad that these two geniuses that brought us this beautiful music are being treated this way. And I mean, then again, on a legal level, they might be wrong. But on a moral level, I still got to say that I side with Marty and Mike. And I hope that things get addressed with this, and that the Halo TV show doesn't get delayed and the music's still there, and then Halo can continue to be on the upward trajectory. Mm-hmm. Right. So, Team 17, Syb. For those who don't know what Team 17 is, just explain to the audience what they are and sort of what trouble they've gotten into.
Team 17 makes a bunch of games. The one that you'll probably know the best is Worms. So the Worms, usually the turn-based physics training game where it teaches you to shoot everything from shotguns to lobbing missiles to holy hand grenades to directing aerial assaults. Again, all in the purpose of killing all of the other enemy worms on the team. Worms is in like small, cute little characters. So a report was put out that a large portion of the developers that work at Team 17 are officially in the poverty category. Yep. A lot of them don't make enough money to pay basic things, and a lot of them, they're put either on a healthcare plan or the company refuses to put them on a healthcare plan, to the point where if they get sick and they have to go to the hospital, that they end up having to put all of that basically on credit cards, and then they end up paying 3 or 4 times the amount for it. All while the CEO makes more money than most people will ever make, ever, and only maintains power by viciously attacking and viciously going after anybody who disagrees with her, and then attacks anybody who criticizes her in any way, shape, or form, and then will allow people who are the, yes men who just sit there and agree with everything that she says, and she'll provide them with free housing and other stuff. But you have to kiss her boots, basically.
Yeah.
It's disturbing, to say the least.
Yeah. When I was watching, just to give some people context as to what Syb means when he says poverty level. If I recall correctly, the video you sent me of Bellular, he said that the baseline salary for people working at the company was like £16,000, and then senior level it was $19,000. So for people who live in the US, which is where the majority of the people are listening, that's like $22,000 to $25,000 a year. That's disgusting.
You're barely making $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
Which again, I mean, if you go on to unemployment, you'll get more money than that. It is absolutely shocking how these people who run these big companies, they're as Belia put it, they're doing capitalism wrong.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who are doing capitalism wrong and who don't understand the core concept of capitalism. Core concept of capitalism is you pay the highest wages that you can. You build the best products that you can by using the best materials that you can to create the best product that you can, and then you sell that product for the lowest that you can. That's how you make industries that change the world. That is a quote from the original, the first Ford, who made the first Ford,
Model
car.
T. Yeah.
Model T. That was his. That not initially. Initially, he built his factory and he said, okay, how much do I, and he started paying these guys really well. But then he had all these like fat cats come up to him and be like, Mr. Ford, I hear you've been paying your employees more than I forget what it was, but let's go with an average number. I think the average daily income at that time, again, I'm wrong on this, but we're just going to average it out and make generalized assumptions. And again, some of these fat cats came up to him, Mr. Ford, we pay all slaves, because that's essentially what they were.
Right,
50 cents a day. I hear you've been paying them $3 a day. How do you... That's unacceptable. And he got some pushback. And again, the stories are they're kind of all over the place, because this was a very long time ago. And he ended up getting pushback. And even the mob started to kind of get involved. And so he had this kind of moment where he decided that no, he wasn't happy with this. He wasn't happy with the direction that they were going, and that he didn't think that any of this stuff was honest. So he decided that, enough was enough. And he came out with, again, as far as I remember it's been a long time since I read this, but I believe he came out with the original concept of doing paid time off, doing paid sick leave, and he increased the wages. It was 1,000, or again, in the current day, where people were getting paid 50 cents for 16 hours of hard labor a day. He started paying several dollars a day, with $5 to $10, $20 a day, because that's what they were making. They were making enough money to do this. And so he said, yes, I'm going to do this. And people actually rioted to try and get hired at his company. And he ended up helping to create the concept of it really changed America's current trajectory, because again, this was late 1800s, early 1900s, and changed it from a fairly poverty-stricken place to a place that said, if you got good skills, you'll get paid a good amount, and more than you'll get paid anywhere else in the world with those same skills. And that transformed that area. So that's what this is. And Team 17 doesn't know this. She doesn't know that in order to make good products, you have to have people who are capable of actually doing their job. And she believes that paying them poverty level wages is an acceptable practice, because really she's doing them a favor by allowing them to work there.
It's sort of the same attitude that Activision Blizzard have, which is well, you're in the games industry, which is huge, and you're working for us because we're a huge name. So you'll, having us on your resume will look real good. That's what you should value, not the fact, not the money that we're paying you. Well, it's these people have to be alive. They have to make car payments in order to drive to your offices.
I've worked for some really terrible people in the past, and everything that I've heard about this lady makes me cringe to the point where it makes me not just cringe, I shudder. I shudder at the absolute vileness of this person. She is a disgusting individual who doesn't care that you are suffering. She doesn't care that people are starving in her own company, where she makes more than enough. Here's one of the disgusting stories that's come out. For years, she brings her Christmas shopping to the company and orders her workers to wrap the presents, knowing full well that her own employees can't afford to buy presents for their own family members. Disgusting. Cannot.
People get these positions, man.
Well, she bought out the company from all the other people that was there. She was a founding member, but I've got to say, I wish she wasn't. I wish those people hadn't sold the company off, because apparently anybody else would have been better. Anybody else would have been better.
Bobby Kotick?
Almost anybody would have been better.
Right.
So it's not just Bobby Kotick. It's not just these terrible guys and bro culture that makes this stuff happen. It's literally anybody who gets a taste for power, because that's what I read. That's what I feel. You have to be either you're completely oblivious. If you think that it's fair and all right to look at your employees knowing that they can't afford Christmas presents because they're too broke, they're too poor. You have a number of people quitting, and all of those people, when you ask them, why are you quitting? They go, you pay me nothing. Yeah. I'm getting paid 300% more money, 3 times, 4 times the amount I'm getting paid here. I'm getting paid over this new company. You just don't pay me enough. And you've heard this for years, and then you get your employees to wrap your Christmas presents for your for your family members and your friends, and for special employees who suck up to you. You have to be a certain level of special devious. Politicians and bank managers are often, at this level of like despicable. I use the bank manager one because it's funny.
Yeah. It's one of two things. She's either an idiot or she's evil. So she just has to pick one of the two.
Yeah. Bellular called it evil. And I would agree with
it is evil.
Him. Anytime you are knowingly that that you're paying somebody garbage and then you flaunt something in their face. It's like, it's like you've been working with Joe. Joe's broke. He's on hard times. He's having a really difficult time. He's hungry. He hasn't been able to eat food today. And you go up to him and you break open a steak, 2 containers of salad, a side of mashed potatoes, an entire, 1.5 foot long garlic bread. You sit down, you eat half of it right in front of him. And then you take the rest and you just throw it in the garbage.
Yeah.
And then you sit there, you call in another employee who's like, paraplegic. I think that's the proper terminology. You call in a paraplegic. And again, I'm a disabled person. I've had this experience where somebody will call me in and then mock the fact that I'm disabled. And then they'll say, "Oh yeah, just so you know, this is really funny to me." And then they have me do something. And in this case, they get the guy to pull the garbage away, struggling the whole time. He's in a wheelchair. He's got to put the garbage on his lap, and the garbage bag has a hole in it. And there's, 3-week-old like stuff, soaking in there. Make sure you put this in the crusher immediately. We wouldn't want any raccoons getting in there and eating all this food. It's like that's the level of evil, this dangling of like, oh, look at me, I'm so special. It's disgusting. I'm having a hard time formatting my words around this because I'm so disgusted by this behavior.
Yeah,
and again, Bellular called this evil, and I completely agree with him. This is some of the most evil, asinine, cruel things that I have ever seen anybody do. And they do it with a smile on their face. And then this whole because this whole thing started with this whole complaint about the NFTs that they're putting into their games.
Yeah. And
she basically called her employees stupid. And how dare you go to the press and talk about this? We don't like this. This isn't for you. Our Teamsters need to keep their mouths shut. We're trying to make money here. And again, it's like, if you just made good games, and sold good games, you'd be at the level of Microsoft. You'd be at the level of Bethesda. You'd be making these billions and billions of dollars, but you're not doing any of that because your greed gets in the way of common sense. I got to apologize for my messed up words and the ways that I'm trying to approach these things and trying to describe this, because this is honestly disgusting.
Yeah.
And you would have thought that Activision and Bobby Kotick being thrown in the face of everybody, and everybody's seen what a duplicitous. Yes, that word. What a conniving, greedy POS he was. You'd think that these people would go, you know what? I should probably be careful. I should probably double check to see if my company is having any of those issues. If my people are struggling to make enough money to pay for food. You wouldn't flaunt it in their face, laugh at it, and then run down the street screaming about how awesome you are. It's like that's the equivalent of what's going on here. And it physically makes me so upset that I can barely put words together.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, well, no, you basically summed it up, man. And just to add on top of that, how sad it is and how frustrating it is. It's especially that case because it just seems to be more and more ubiquitous with every passing month. We hear about these corrupt CEOs and game companies and how they go beyond sort of like the big companies like EA and Ubisoft and Activision Blizzard. And now it's with the company that's supposed to be about promoting indie games. Yeah. So it's like, guys, we got to really treasure and protect the companies that are still out there that are still doing good. Companies like From Software,
and we
companies
have
like
to encourage indie games. That's something that I've been trying to do recently. I just bought another indie game that was suggested to me by a friend, and it's like, go out there and find indie games to play. Mm-hmm. I spent $13 on Lost Ark. Or sorry, $15, whatever the base thing to get into the early access was. I haven't spent a dime on the game. I spent almost double that on an indie game that I bought the week before. It's like, support these smaller developers, because these big companies that are soulless monsters who delight and are gleeful in the pain and misery that they cause from the CEOs and people in power, we have to start pulling away from them on some level. I haven't bought, I went through my list, and sure enough, I haven't bought a Team 17 product in a long time. Why? Because their games are kind of crap recently, and now we know why. It's not because the developers are garbage and don't know what they're doing. It's because the developers are so hungry and starving and so worried that that Sally, their daughter Sally is going to need braces, and they can't afford the braces because for the 5th month in a row, the company has found some way of negating their ability to pay them their additional health coverage, or to supplement some of their costs that the public stuff doesn't always cover in some countries. And then in other countries, they just flat out tell them no and laugh at them. And again, for a company that makes that the profit over what they pay to create that work, I mean, it's leagues. It's not a little bit. There's certain companies, there's certain big box stores, they have a profit margin of like 7%. It's really tiny. I mean, for every $100 that they're spending keeping the lights on, they're only getting $107 back.
Yeah.
Right. But there's other companies that they're spending $100 on, getting some poor saps to do some work for them, and then they're making $20,000, and then they're laughing that the guy, one of their employees has broken his leg and can't afford he's got to walk around on a stick because he can't actually afford a decent pair of crutches. And they're laughing about it, talking about how much, how good they're doing as a job. And then they go out there and they flap their butt trying to show how, how progressive and how calm and how, wonderful they are as a person in their industry.
Yep.
It's like, no, you're not. You're the exact opposite of a good influence on this industry. You're the reason why we have so many problems. Disgusting. Ugh.
Yeah. So, just to repeat what I said just a moment ago, guys, support developers like Insomniac, Sucker Punch, the ones that me and Cyb like, but also, support indie developers. And before we conclude, I'd like to recommend one indie game that I finished playing about a week ago. Probably the most wonderfully emotional game that I've ever played. And it's very short. It's called To the Moon. It's got wonderful music, a wonderful aesthetic, and it's very creative. You can get it on Steam for like $10, I think, and you definitely won't forget it. I don't think I ever will. Cy, before we conclude, do you want to, just in the spirit of supporting indie developers, you want to recommend like 1 or 2 good indie games?
I can't talk about either of the last 2 that I just got.
Okay.
Because it's a family show. I'll shout out Pathfinder. I'll shout out Subverse again with the heavy emphasis that that I'm not encouraging you to go out and buy it for the sake of buying it, but if you want to stick it to the man, so to speak, to use a verbiage, it's a game that is obviously for 18 plus. It is in some places 21 plus. It is obviously a game that showcases much 18 plus, which I don't even have. I think I only have I've got 10 hours in the game. So it's like I played through the story that's available. But the nicest thing about buying games like this is you really stick it again to the man, where you're looking at them and you're saying, I don't need your AAA polished stuff. I will support guys who are making stuff just because they want to and because they think it's funny, because you told them that you can't do that in polite society. Iron Harvest is another one that's a good.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that one.
Iron Harvest was again made by a small, their King Art is the developer, Prime Matter is the publisher. Very small companies. They don't make dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of games. They make a small number of games. King's Bounty 2. System, they're the ones behind the system, one of the System Shock reboots. These are smaller companies, right?
Yeah.
And again, go out, get that stuff. They also did Pathfinder too.
Nice.
That's kind of funny. So yeah, look at that. Oh, Encased is another good one. I'm just going through their list. I have Encased. They also published Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Oh, okay.
Red Faction, Painkiller, bunch of other ones. These are not huge. This is not a huge company. This is very small publishers that support smaller studios. Try to find stuff that you like, obviously, that fits in there, and then try to
Give it a
give
shot.
them a little, give some of their stuff a shot, because in all honesty, supporting these big fat cat companies where they just treat people like human garbage has got to stop. It's so bad. It's got to stop. Oh my God. It makes my mouth just like, ugh.
Yeah. By the way, Kingdom Come Deliverance, that's an especially good one if, you have a computer that can run it. So, on that note, let's conclude the show. Remember, Elden Ring coming out in less than a week. Let's be excited about that, coming from a company that both Simon and I like. Thank you so much.
If you're enjoying Lost Ark, hit us up in the community. We have a guild. We're playing on East Server Regulus right now. The game is still holding really positive numbers. It's a very fun experience. It's a very interesting game. I highly recommend if you have any interest in it, at all, check it out. It's free to play right now, and that's not gonna hurt you. Is it a little pay to win? I'd say it's like slightly pay to win. It is definitely pay to win, but it's slightly pay to win. And
compared to everything else,
yeah. I mean, they got to make their money somehow, and I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just stating that
you take what you can get, yeah. And Lost Ark seems to be doing quite well in that regard. Side, just before we conclude, do you want to tell everybody else about the Triple S League main YouTube channel?
Yeah, check out the main Triple S League channel. We had a great, absolutely spectacular review of Baldur's Gate's patch 7 has come out. Amazing. We covered it live, and then we've had a discussion on it. Absolutely baller. It came out and impressed everybody. It's doing really great. The podcast where we actually covered it live was really, really amazing. Had lots of interaction. Join us for events like that. And Baldur's Gate, there's not too much to chat about it right now, but it is becoming a good game, and we're gonna be doing lots of content about it in the future. So check that out. And
heck yeah. And you can find me just at my personal YouTube channel, just at Max Derrat. I'll put links to that and the Triple S League main channel in the description box below. Thank you guys, and until next week when we can maybe cover a little bit of Elden Ring, I'm just going to remind you as always, and as per usual, stay yellow.
Goodbye.